In 1986, when a Swiss businesswoman boarded a plane to Kenya for vacation, she had no idea she was about to dismantle her entire life. On a ferry crossing the Indian Ocean coast, she saw him, a tall, proud warrior wrapped in red cloth and foreign tradition, standing like a silhouette against the light. His name was Katinga, a Samburu Moran, whose world was as distant from hers as night from day. Corinne Hoffman was with her boyfriend when she spotted him, but within days, she had broken up with her partner, returned to Switzerland, sold her business and her possessions, and chose to go back to Kenya to find him. She crossed continents for love. She left the comforts of the city for a clay hut, harsh heat, and the rhythms of pastoral life. She learned to fetch water, gather wood, speak the language, and live within the ancient customs of a people that she barely understood. She and Katinga got married. She bore a daughter, and for a time, it was an enthralling adventure, full of beauty, tenderness, and the intoxicating rush of crossing worlds for desire. But the reality of life beneath that sun was merciless. Malaria struck, survival weighed heavily, and the cultural distance between them widened with every misunderstanding. Katinga's jealousy grew, a fierce, paranoid fire that strained their fragile bond. The dream that began with passion slowly frayed, under the constant pressure of climate, customs, and heartbreak that neither language nor...
That's enough. This story sounds very similar to what happened in Titanic, Jack and Rose. If you've seen that movie, I think everyone has. Rose cheated on her fiancé with a guy she had just met. What has always bothered me about stories like this is how they are often packaged as tales of courage and love, rather than what they actually are: cheating. Hollywood has a habit of doing this. They make the audience support the cheating partner by making the man look bad and turn into the villain. The same thing happened in Titanic. Rose's fiancé was portrayed in a way that made viewers just dislike him for no reason. Just like that. Which conveniently, of course, made Rose's actions seem more justified. We all focused on the romance while barely discussing the fact that the woman was cheating. That framing has always seemed strange to me, of course. Instead of asking whether the decision was right or wrong, many of these stories start from the assumption that if someone is following their feelings, then the audience should automatically be okay with it and cheer them on. This story is terrible. It's genuinely terrible. I don't see anything romantic about it. It's a very terrible movie or story. Titanic is also a very terrible story. And I discovered that a book has been written about this nonsense. Of course, as expected, it would be framed as romance. Then Hollywood went on to adapt it into a movie, The White Maasai, and presented it through, of course, the same romantic lens. The lesson from the story is simple: that a woman becoming obsessed with a man she barely knew, while engaged to another man and reorganizing her entire life around that obsession, is a good thing. There's also no point pretending we don't know who the target audience for this kind of stories are. It's usually women. Hollywood has spent decades selling the idea that impulsive emotional decisions are somehow courageous, especially when they involve romance. That chasing intense emotional feelings is some form of bravery or even liberating. We saw it in Titanic. Rose left her fiancé for a man she just met. Yet somehow she became the hero of the entire story. That's even the most annoying part. This particular story is following the same pattern because this woman decided to throw away her entire life, abandon her fiancé in pursuit of a fantasy. Instead of people looking at it and observing the recklessness of her decision, we are somehow encouraged by the movies and the books to see it as a grand romantic adventure or whatever. I genuinely struggle to view these stories as romance because they are not. Listening to this story, I can't help but think this goes far beyond ordinary romance. It comes across as someone chasing fantasy, the kind of fantasy that existed only in their imagination. You can call it a fascination or obsession or whatever, or even a fetish view of different lifestyle. But it's difficult for me to see it as a realistic plan from the beginning. It's more like a horror story. These two people are worlds apart, culturally, economically, a Western woman abandoning everything to live as a nomad in rural Kenya. You don't need to be a psychic to even predict how this could have ended. It couldn't have worked. Different expectations and values and ways of life. Those things don't magically disappear because you like someone or you fantasize about someone or whatever. What surprises me the most is that people often discuss the story as though the eventual outcome is shocking. Of course, the divorce was not shocking. I would have been more surprised if it actually worked out perfectly. The difficulties were visible from the beginning. And this is why the comparison with Titanic keeps coming back to my mind. Rose only knew Jack for a few hours before the ship and found its way to the bottom of the ocean. Decades later, the story still presents him as the great love of her life. Even after she got married and built an entire family with another man, with children, yet the emotional centerpiece of the story was still the remnants of a brief encounter on a ship. How ridiculous. It was even ridiculous enough that she threw away an expensive blue diamond because of a one night stand memory. What am I supposed to learn from this story? It's crazy.